Everyone, it's Brano. I'm going to be making a 2025 prediction on video games because a lot of the YouTubers I watch are now doing prediction videos, and there's an explanation as to why, which is as you practice your skill at predicting certain events that happen in the future, you actually do typically get better at it. And I can see this as a way of, working a skill that I don't have, and that really being able to make better predictions and being able to plan ahead for future events, that seems like something that's really useful. So I'm going to be doing this about video games and my thoughts on the video game market. So I've written down a couple of dot points on what I think is going to happen this year, and let's just go through them. All right, my first prediction is that GTA 6 will release for Christmas 2025. I reckon it's going to be probably really late November. That's when they're going to release. And while I do believe that Take-Two really wants Rockstar to make the best product that they can, it's taken a very long time to reach that deadline. And they know that their earnings reports is heavily based on the release of GTA 6. I said GTA 6, right? I didn't say GTA 5. Anyway, I meant GTA 6. So I think that they will basically say, no, you have to release this Christmas because it's getting ridiculous. This endless development cycle, we need a win. So as much as Rockstar does want to polish their games as much as possible, I think it's taken long enough. I think that the parent holding company is getting sick of it and you just got to release. Now, I also think that GTA 6 is going to release at $80 USD. I don't think it's going to be the $100 USD. I don't think it's going to be 70. I think it's going to be $80. I think that they know that they can get away with increasing the price, but they don't want to scare or create a huge amount of negative sentiment. And also, it's just like the price anchoring on GTA 6. There's a lot of these discussions to try and increase the price to $100 USD because it's going to be such a big game. And I think that's going to create too much negativity. But because now we've had this major news cycle of $100 being the new baseline, I think they're going to say, actually, we do need to increase our prices, but we're only going to do it by $80. Well, we're only going to do it up to $80, so you're getting a discount. And I think it's still going to get some negative press, but once it's out, no one's going to care. It's going to 100% not give people like sticker shock or anything like that. And I reckon from that, $80 is going to be the new baseline for AAA games for probably the next 3 to 4 years. I do have a video planned about the price of video games in the future, but I'll go into that. Now, that's kind of my predictions for like the big AAA game of the year, and I reckon, it's gonna win Game of the Year. It's probably gonna have some technical glitches and stuff that's gonna be criticized, but it will get Game of the Year. That's my prediction. I think it's gonna be a pretty darn good game. Now, in terms of like the indie space or the Steam space, I think that 22,000 games are going to be released on Steam in 2025. And this is just going to follow the trend of AAA studios shutting down, and people, instead of getting back into the industry, they're going to start trying to make their own games. And I think there's going to be a lot more games due this year than in previous years. In addition, the AI game mills are going to be ramping up their production, and it's just going to continue to get more and more flooded. So I reckon, last year 2024 was 18,000 games. I reckon it's going to be 22,000 games. And I reckon eventually it's going to start causing problems from Valve when their soft curation systems are going to be kind of wrecked just due to the sheer amount of games made available. It is getting absolutely ridiculous because once the curators begin to have a really tough time working out which games are worth playing, the system breaks down. The soft curation system breaks down. So we'll see what happens in there, but I reckon 22,000 games are going to release. Now, I reckon, based on Chris Kozlowski's vlog, I reckon that 550 non-AAA games are going to get above 1,000 ratings. So that's kind of like his standard for a big success. And I think there is a major shift going on for lower scoped games, because as kind of gamers, there was a Shredded Nerd video talking about his criticisms of like millennial or people who were game reviewers in the 2000s and the early 2010s. And one of the things that he mentioned, which I thought was a really good point, was this was before a time of live service games. And I think that the way gamers are playing now is you've got 1 to 3 main games, which you spend most of your time, and then you're getting extremely good entertainment per dollar per hour value there. But they're also going to want distractions. And the market for these big AAA games that take a lot of time, they're going to shrink. So I think the desire for like smaller titles that do one thing and do it really well, that's going to continue to increase. And so we'll have I reckon 550 non-AAA games are going to get above 1,000 views in 2025. Now, I do not think that Silk Road is going to be released in 2025. And the reason for this is that something just tells me that they are in development hell. There's something so incredibly wrong about how they've developed these games, and I think they've screwed up as project managers. It was a lot easier when the game was lower scope and they only had like a team of 3 people to work with, but now that they're working with other people, it's become development hell. I don't think they're going to release in 2025. I mean, I hope they do. I really enjoyed Hollow Knight, but yeah, to me, I think they're going to release in 2026. And they're going to have to compromise it. And if they do release in 2026, there's going to be a couple of key gameplay issues that are going to come with Silksong. It's not going to be this perfect game. It's going to be a very polished game that's a bit of a flawed masterpiece. I reckon that's what's going to happen with Silksong. I think that the AAA layoffs are going to continue. The idea of this survive to 25 was like a nice sort of idea for a lot of people, but I think it's going to continue to I think you're going to have a new phrase, which is going to be avoid getting dicked till 26. And, I would not want to be in the AAA industry because it's changing. It's fundamentally changing. The business model is not working out very well for AAA games. It's basically, you're a live service, which is winner takes all. You make 10 out of 10 games, which is not a sustainable business model, no matter how much you want it to be. And otherwise, it's just going to be creating smaller experiences. So it's either winner takes all with live service. You make 10 out of 10 games, so you basically make a game of the year contender, or you have to downsize. That's the way I see it, at least. And with this, I think that Ubisoft will be bought out in 2025. I don't think that Ubisoft is going to be an independent company in 2025. I think their Assassin's Creed game is going to flop, or it's going to do okay. It's not going to be it's not going to be a terrible financial success. It's not going to be Concord, but it's not going to do super well. It's not going to do well enough to save the studio. And they're going to be bought out because they've got a lot of IPs that are very valuable. And so I feel bad for anyone working for Ubisoft. But yeah, I think Ubisoft will be bought out. I don't know by who. It could be Tencent. Who the hell knows? It could be Microsoft as well. Because I think that Microsoft, it's a bit of an interesting thing. I don't know if... I think Microsoft is still going to continue to try to do well in the gaming. I think they're still in the double down perspective, but I don't think they're going to have a lot of success. Let's be real. But I reckon you'll start seeing the signs of that in 2026, not 2025. The Switch 2. I don't think that's going to be anywhere nearly as successful as the first Switch. And the reason why is because, number one, there's no Zelda. There's no new Zelda. So to me, Zelda is the key thing that gets people to make sure that they buy this on launch. But number two is it doesn't have the toy novelty factor. Most of the Switch, like most of the success from the Wii and so most of the success from the Wii and the Switch was the super casual audience that uses it as a toy. And not to mention, with more kind of hardcore gamers seeing the value of the portable Switch deck, that's going to kind of like drive into sales. So I don't think you're going to get enough worthwhile software on the Switch 2 to make it a particularly big financial success. And I don't know. And then there's no Zelda as well. So you're going to get the hardcore Nintendo fans, but you're not going to get a huge amount of people beyond that. You'll have some momentum with Mario Kart, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near... Like, I don't think that the sales of the Switch 2 are going to match the first year of sales from the Switch 1 by a thumb. I reckon it's going to be maybe 30%. I'm just going to go... The Switch 2 is going to have as many as 30% of the Switch 1 sales within the first 6 months of being out. That's what I reckon. Now, one of the other things I think is going to be with gacha, I don't think that's going to be nearly as profitable. I think you're going to start to see like a 25% downturn in profits and revenue, and you're going to stop seeing growth because the novelty of these, oh, I can actually play a game with good graphics and some depth. I don't think gacha games have a lot of depth, to be honest. Like even Genshin Impact, like I played it and it's just like it's like a really light version of Breath of the Wild. It's kind of, it lost a lot of my interest, but I think it's just people are gonna catch on to, I have like the whales are gonna slowly realize that I have an unhealthy addiction to spending a lot of money on these gacha games, so I need to stop. And I think that revenue stream is going to start to begin to show signs of drying up. It's not going to collapse or anything, but it's just going to, the growth is gone and you get a lot of people who are just going to do something else with their life rather than spend all their money on gacha. I think that's going to happen with gacha. Now, in terms of more like the engine space, so the GMTK Game Jam, I think that's going to get a record amount of people participating in it again. I reckon it's going to be a 20% increase in the amount of submissions to the GMTK Game Jam 2025. I think that Godot is going to be the most used engine with 44% of total games submitted. So I think it is going to surpass Unity for the first time, and I think it's going to get to 44%. And in my mind, it's beginning to look like Godot is now becoming the default for indies. So that's good. It's not going to have the tremendous burst that it had in 2024. And not to mention, some of the drama with the Twitter spat probably hurt some of the momentum. What a fucking stupid piece of drama. Anyway, I think that Godot will be number one at 44% for the GMTK engine submission. And I think the GMTK will have 20% more submissions to that game jam. Now, Unity, I think, will continue to survive, but it's going to look grimmer and grimmer and grimmer. And that's less because Godot is taking its market share from the more in the indie space. I think that Unreal 5 is taking away most of their profits from the top end space, as more and more people that I meet are deciding to learn Unreal 5 because they want a job in the industry. And that seems just to be becoming the default, where more and more people are going towards Unreal 5 as the kind of big game industry engine of choice. So Godot's taking away stuff from indies. Unreal is taking stuff away from like kind of the larger studios, and Unity is going to continue to have to double down on mobile development. But so I think they will survive, but it's going to be kind of slightly growing. It's just going to be continually nibbled on. I think that Unity will survive, but it will not grow, and things are going to be really scary for Unity moving forward. Now, in terms of my own project, I think that Heal to Death is going to have 3,000 sales by the end of the year. Now, I reckon I'll get 2,000 wish lists from Steam Next Fest. And I'm going to have a couple YouTubers around like the smallish to mid-range channels review, like cover my game and talk positively about it, and that's going to give it a little bit of momentum for launch. And then upon release, I'll get some more coverage from these mid to small YouTubers. I'll probably have one big YouTuber cover it or something like that. But after that, it's probably not going to get that like long-term momentum. I hope it's not the case. I hope I get more, but I reckon 3,000 sales is what I think is most likely to get, which would put me below any of my tiers of what I would consider a financial success. Anyway, those are my thoughts on, well, those are my predictions for 2025. I'm deciding to get this out on the final day of January because after that it's kind of like, well, you missed the boat. So I think I can still make my predictions in January. So we'll see how we do. This is my first time really predicting stuff because I've always avoided predictions because like, oh, I'm just going to be wrong. But if this can help me long term to make better predictions in the future, I reckon this type of video is worth it. So we'll see how right I am. We'll see how wrong I am. I'm predicting to be wrong on plenty of things. I don't have a lot of kind of logic basis behind my decisions. So we'll see how we go.